So the date is August 21st, 2025. And if you just glance at today's headlines, they seem all over the place, right? A military offensive over here, a big economic meeting over there, a court sanction somewhere else. But they're not disconnected. They are all symptoms of one single, powerful theme bubbling just under the surface. So what's the connection? How does a crisis in Gaza link up with a bankers meeting in Wyoming and a court in The Hague? Well, the answer is a world system that's under immense, simultaneous strain from pretty much every direction. In this explainer, we're going to connect those dots and show you the bigger picture they're all painting.
All right, let's start with the most immediate, the most human pressure point, the absolutely devastating humanitarian catastrophe that's unfolding in Gaza. That number you see, 60,000. That's how many Israeli reservists have just been deployed for a huge offensive in and around Gaza City. A number that big tells you one thing. This is a massive military escalation, aimed squarely at what they say are the remaining Hamas strongholds.
And a military operation on that scale, well, it has a real and devastating human cost. Reports coming from the ground are they're grim. They're painting this picture of civilians trapped in the crossfire, desperately trying to flee for their lives.
And the crisis is escalating at a truly horrifying speed. According to UNWNWA, that's the UN's Agency for Palestine Refugees, there has been a six-fold increase in child hunger since just March. Think about that, a six-fold increase. That is not just a statistic, it is a catastrophic failure to protect the most vulnerable people.
And the daily toll? It's just relentless. The very latest figures show 20 more Palestinians have been killed since dawn, and tragically, 2 more people have died from starvation, bringing that total to 271. This, right here, is the sharpest, most painful edge of the pressure we're talking about today.
You know, a crisis like this doesn't happen in a vacuum. It sends ripples all across the globe, feeding this sense of instability that leads us right into our next pressure point, economic anxiety. So we're shifting gears from Gaza to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. This is where the world's most powerful central bankers are meeting, and the U.S. Federal Reserve, the institution that basically steers the American economy, is feeling some serious heat.
So what's the big deal here? Well, it all boils down to this huge disconnect. On one side, you have the markets, investors, everyone practically begging for the Fed to signal that it's going to cut interest rates to give the economy a boost. But on the other side, the Fed's own private meeting minutes show there's very little support for that. And that gap between what everyone wants and what's likely to happen is creating some major tension.
And it's not just the markets. The Fed is getting squeezed from all sides. You've got political pressure, with President Trump openly attacking the Fed chair and demanding a governor resign. Then there's corporate pressure, with giants like Walmart reporting disappointing profits and a tech leader like Meta hitting pause on AI hiring. All of these are chaotic signals that make the Fed's job incredibly difficult.
Okay, so when people are suffering and economies are on edge, you'd hope that global institutions and laws could provide some stability, right? Well, our third pressure point shows that those very rules, they're now becoming part of the battlefield.
And here's the word you need to know: lawfare. That's the key term the Trump administration is using to justify its moves against the International Criminal Court, or the ICC. The idea is that legal systems are being used as a weapon of war, and that's the whole basis for this direct confrontation with a major global institution.
So how did we even get here? Well, it all escalated pretty fast. First, the ICC, which is basically the world's permanent court for war crimes, started investigating the actions of U.S. and Israeli personnel. The U.S. response was, to put it mildly, explosive. They didn't just disagree, they labeled the entire court a national security threat, and then took the unprecedented step of sanctioning individual judges and prosecutors.
At the very same time, another massive legal drama is unfolding. Remember the mysterious sabotage of the Nord Stream gas pipelines back in 2022? Well, 3 years later, a Ukrainian man has just been arrested in Italy in connection with it. Now, Ukraine has always denied any involvement, but an arrest in a case this big, it just puts even more strain on the whole system of international law and cooperation.
So, if the rule of law itself is under attack, what's left? Diplomacy, right? That's supposed to be the main tool for resolving conflict when everything else fails. But that brings us to our final pressure point. Even diplomacy is buckling under all this strain.
And this quote from Ukrainian President Zelenskyy, man, it just cuts right to the heart of the problem. After a major new Russian missile and drone strike, he's basically saying that it proves Vladimir Putin isn't serious about engaging in any real peace efforts. And the timing here is absolutely critical.
This military action didn't just happen out of the blue. It came just as the U.S. was increasing its pressure for negotiations and the international community was talking about security guarantees. The action on the battlefield is in direct opposition to the movement at the diplomatic table.
So let's just pull all these threads together for a second. What did we see today? We've got immense humanitarian pressure building in Gaza. We've got intense economic pressure on the world's most important financial systems. The very rules of international law are under fire, and diplomatic efforts for peace are being sabotaged by military action.
Look, any one of these would be a major crisis on its own. But when you see them all happening together at the same time, they paint a picture of a global system that is straining at the seams. And that leaves us with one critical question. When a system is being pushed this hard from every direction, at what point does it break?